What's up, guys? A little bit of a different hour than your normally scheduled podcasting hour, but we are still committed to giving you guys an episode a week. In this one, it's a little bit of a light week on content, so we decided to do one for us as another one of the infinite rewatchables terms that I will continue to coin on this channel. So we're doing a movie that, again, was kind of weirdly unexpected, but in a strange way, I feel like this would have been like the perfect movie for us to cover during COVID, but I'm so glad that we still get these movies occasionally. That being Weird, the Al Yankovic Story, the Roku channel original movie that is supposedly a biopic on Weird Al Yankovic's life, when in reality it is none of those things at all. So,
Yeah,
Chris,
it's odd that in an off week we get such a heavy hitter.
I mean, again, it's this stuff that we wish we would get every week, you know? All
Yeah.
of that and more on tonight's episode of the Talkin' TV podcast. All right, Chris, it's a little bit of a late one for us, but again, we like you said, we were so committed to podcasting about this one that we had to, Weird, the Al Yankovic Story. First and foremost, in order to start this off, when I sent you this trailer weeks ago originally, did you think I was pranking you at first? You're muted. You're muted.
Forgive me, everyone. It's as you can see, I'm not on my normal setup. We're in a bit of a studio transition period. But no, what I was saying was when you sent it to me, I didn't doubt it. I just kind of asked myself, why? Why this? Why now of all times? Who threw money at this but couldn't fund like a public works project? Like, this is what we want to throw money into. We don't actually want to try and help, like, I don't know, homeless people or aid people affected by some environmental disaster. This is what we want to do. But I'm also kind of glad this movie happened, and we'll get into that. So yeah.
I love your anecdote that you go on. Yeah, like I'll admit, like of all the pleasurable viewing experiences that I was looking forward to in 2022, the Weird Al Yankovic biopic that's not really a biopic was certainly not something that I was expecting to look forward to or even podcast about. But then, like, I saw kind of the structure or the type of movie that it was going for, and I realized pretty early on what it was going for, because I'm like, look, they're making a movie about Weird Al Yankovic. There's no possible way this could be anything but interesting at the very least. I don't know, I'll admit, I don't know a super whole lot about him aside from the whole, coming up with just different words in order to parody mainstream songs. I've listened to a couple of them. But I mean, the origin story behind this, I think, is almost as funny, if not funnier, than this movie itself, because this is based on a Funny or Die sketch originally that, like, again, they just went super hard with. It's I'm trying to pull up the origins of it. Yeah, so it was in 2010 he released a fake trailer for a satirical biofilm called Weird, the Al Yankovic Story, directed by Eric Appel, who's the director of this movie. The cast included Aaron Paul as Weird Al, and also co-starred Olivia Wilde, Gary Cole, Mary Steenburgen, and Patton Oswalt. What's it called? And at the time, the fake trailer was intended to parody prior biographical films on musicians such as Ray and Walk the Line. Now, I think that's a little bit interesting there, because there was a film that came out in the late 2000s that kind of operated in a similar fashion as this movie, where, like you said, parodying certain of the films that were coming out at the time. Like I said, the early 2000s was kind of, in a strange way, saw a lot of the similar films that we saw coming out now, with these music biopics for famous musicians, again, Ray for Ray Charles, Walk the Line for Johnny Cash. And in 2007, there was a movie called Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story featuring John C. Reilly. That is just one of the funniest movies I have ever seen, where it just parodies every single one, because what it does is it parodies like the structure of music biopics. So, and what's fascinating about it is that it does that thing that like comedies of like satires of old used to do, where it parodies it by essentially being the same movie. Like, it's not necessarily adding anything new or crazy to it, at least, not for the purposes of that movie, not for the purposes of this movie either. but it's just doing the exact same thing that the rest of those movies do in order to kind of expose the repetitive nature of the formula, because we're all very familiar with the biopic formula, specifically with the music biopic formula as well. And so kind of how this movie has the audacity but also the foresight to take that exact same formula, do it again like 15 years later, and arguably have it work better. I think the only thing that really kind of adds to it as well is the whole streaming aspect of it, is the fact that this is literally a movie that's free for everyone. You know, again, this didn't air on a major streamer. You didn't have to pay to rent this. It's available for free to watch on the Roku channel. So that
Can
kind
I
of like
say,
almost adds to like the austerity of it all.
it really does. I love how sketchy it is. It was hard for me to Google search. I couldn't quite find it right away. I typed in Weird Al movie, couldn't find it. I had to put watch Weird Al Roku to finally get it. I go to the website. I think I'm going to have to submit my email and get on their list. No, I literally click one weird little line that like doesn't even properly say it. I pull it up. I watch it. And I'm like, it's buffering, it's cutting in and out at times, and it just adds to the charm.
Really? See, I didn't have any buffering problems with it.
Oh, I did, but it didn't matter. It was
Yeah,
great. It was
it
like
did matter.
there was like 4 or 5 throughout the course of the whole thing, and I watched it. Actually, I watched it with my grandpa, and he thought it was the weirdest, most insane thing. And he knows nothing about Weird Al. He was just up for anything, and I think he still thinks that like I don't know what he thinks because I didn't know because
might
I
be
didn't
something
watch.
you have to check up on him with later. Just be like, Grandpa, remember that Weird Al movie that we watched? Have you got a chance to think about it a little bit more since then?
Because I didn't watch the trailer. I only really watch the trailers if you like. There's certain wordings of yours that get me to watch the trailers. Most of them are like, dude, that will get me to watch it. But this one didn't get hook me in to watch the trailer because I felt that I didn't need to. I said, okay, so we'll watch Weird Al pick up the guitar for the first time or whatever and go
Yeah,
through life.
yeah,
So glad I knew nothing
right,
going into this
right.
because at first I thought, okay, maybe his parents weren't supportive and they're just making a joke and being, overacting, purposefully playing the part in a terrible way just to show this happens in every biopic. The father's disapproving, the mother wants to help, but the father's from like this like weird dominant male old school relationship where the mother has to sneak the child what he needs. And like I was like, okay, they're making fun of that. That's a trope, they're making fun of that. And they were. But then it slowly, I love the snowball effect of insanity
Right.
that this movie takes. It honestly, dude, I gotta say, this is like one of my favorite comedies I've seen in such a long time.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because, again, just forget good comedies, which are already rare in and of themselves. Comedies in general are just so rare in what we get now. And it's funny because, again, I feel like a lot of people, the few people who are going to watch this movie, which I don't know who is actually going to watch this movie, but I definitely could see this living on as a cult movie. But this is the type of movie that if this had come out like 10, 15 years ago, would have been a smash hit if it had come out, you know? And that's not even talking about the Daniel Radcliffe aspect of it, which don't get me wrong. I've got a whole like 10 minutes that I want to do on him at the end of the show, just as far as like the constantly baffling yet somehow extremely satisfying career choices that he is making. But now it's like the fact that it's like, wow, this is a competently made satirical movie that progressively gets better and better and better as time goes on, simply by satirizing elements that are so known and so predictable, but doing it in such a way that doesn't feel cheap. And like this movie is a niche movie. It's like, wow, there's a reason why I had the first topic I have is that why is this one of the best movies of the year? Because it is baffling to me why a movie that by all rights is just a great movie in and of its own right is a niche property. Like we're literally to that point now. You know, we're literally to a point now where something that is just fun, enjoyable, weird, like, but because it has its ridiculously own unique identity, that's not a genre that is doing well in theaters, that is something that would have been buried on a streamer. And like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, why is it so difficult to find this? Like you said, you had to type in like Weird Al Roku on Google,
Yeah, honestly, I see what you're trying to say. Who cares? It made it even more
Yeah,
fun.
fair,
I
fair.
gotta say though, we gotta just talk about this movie now. Enough talking around it. We gotta
Yeah,
talk about it because it is so well written. It perfectly plays to, I think, the audience that it's trying to reach. It I feel like a super diehard Weird Al fan, that's already a super unique kind of person to begin with. So even if they're not getting what they want, they're still probably entertained. I love the star-studded comedy cast. It harkened back to like that movie where all the big actors are in it. Seth Rogen, It's the End of the World or
Oh,
whatever.
this is the end.
This is the end. It harkened back to like all those like super bad. I thought Major Pineapple Express, just with the crazy journey they end up going on. I really, it really brought me back to that headspace, and I think it's because it's funny. It takes twists, but each twist is handled really well. Like when we do that action sequence twist in the diner the first time, it's like, oh, they came prepared. Like this is hilarious, but it's also kind of intense. Like it was Guns Akimbo vibes. Like he was just coming out swinging, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like the writing is so well done, and I love that Weird Al is one of the writers on this movie. Like, way to just take this and run with it, Weird Al. Like, thank you for this. Could have been your biopic, sure, but I'm so glad you chose to go elsewhere with it
Yeah, it's
because it's
it
just
definitely shows that he's like really creative involved with this one because it's like you can tell obviously when biopics are like again the creators is like whatever this is being made so whatever but like when the subject of the biopic is a creative personality and they are involved well like again I feel like that's one of the reasons why Straight Outta Compton works so well is because Ice Cube and Dr. Dre were so very, very heavily involved with the making of that and making sure that they got it right. So the fact that Weird Al just loves this so much is the fact that it's like, yeah, my entire kind of career has been a parody. So why shouldn't the movie about me, in quotes, be the most ridiculously over the top side? I didn't even have like a PSA at the beginning of the movie that says, yeah, it's like, this is not based on a true, something along the lines of this is not based on a true story. None of this actually happened, like,
oh, I didn't notice that.
yeah, it's like right at the beginning of the movie. It's like a blinker, you'll miss it. But I think it's hilarious how they pull that off. And like, I don't know. Like, did you want to do like a couple minutes just on Weird Al in general? Because you're the music guy here, so you obviously know more about him in general. Like, kind of like how his I don't know. It's such a weird career because it's like I looked at him and it's like he had a comedy song aired on. So a couple of them were based. A couple of the things that happened in this movie are based on his real life. Like he did have the song that aired on the Dr. Dementia radio show when he was 16. What's it called? But I just feel like there's so much like more interest around him, considering that it's like he seems like by all rights just like a normal guy, who just like has just like a really, really awesome sense of humor.
So I'm no Weird Al fan. I don't hate him either. It's not necessarily my neck of the woods when it comes to music. But what I can speak to is the way that they portrayed the music industry in this movie. It's hilarious. I think it comes at a perfect time after the Queen movie, after the Elton John movie, after again the whole aughts, which were just music biopic and music biopic and music biopic and formulaic after formulaic film after formulaic film. And of course, like, yes, you kind of go on a similar journey if you're reaching stardom. And unfortunately, a lot of them had the bottom out period and then the rise again. But it's like, okay, we get it. I thought it was hilarious the way he portrayed every facet of it. It's like, so you're like my mentor? And it's like, that's so stupid. It's like, okay, that's hilarious. And then I love when he's in the record label office and they're just being the most over the top versions. And it's because they're so stupid that it works. Like they're saying all the things that you would say if you were making fun of a record executive. It's just that's the thing that I feel you write. And you're like, I can't actually do this though. But they do it and it's perfect.
Yes.
And I also love the idea of Weird Al's Grammy category. I can't remember the exact title, but that is just how bullshit the Grammys actually are.
Right.
And I feel like Weird Al knows that. And I feel like Weird Al put all those pictures at the end of the movie of him with Paul McCartney and David Bowie and Mick Jagger because real recognize real, I think. And they probably know like this guy is talented. It is kind of fucked up that we're the ones that got recognized by this academy and he didn't. That's why they all are hanging out probably. They're all peers. And I just think it's like it's such a great social commentary on just how BS the music industry and all award, entertainment, pop culture really is. It's just all who you know, and it's all like you got to be the right thing at the right time, and real talent is only the type of talent we need in the moment is the only real talent we'll take. Like he obviously was an amazing accordion player, that much I know, but no one cares about that instrument, I guess, quote unquote, in
Right.
pop. So like it doesn't matter. But he's
Right.
gifted. He's a virtuoso at it.
Right. Because
So it's
we
like,
all know that like when it comes to the Grammys, like, yeah, the Grammys are only about like what's relevant. And in this
yeah,
case, it's like, yeah, just
yeah.
somehow like what is it, bastardizing every single category. It's like, okay, this is gonna be like rock pop, and this is gonna be like, hip hop
So
country. And it's like, what?
exactly. No, no, no. There's a category called Best Pop Vocal. Do you know what that category
No,
essentially is?
what does that mean? What does that even mean? Pop vocal.
That category, no one knows what it means, but for some reason, it's all the reggae bands that didn't get nominated for the actual reggae Grammy section. It's like the training wheels for the reggae set, which is cool. I'm a fan of reggae. That's why I know about this. So it's like cool. The smaller bands can, I guess, win a Grammy and build some esteem. But wouldn't you think best pop vocal would go to like Taylor Swift or someone, not like a reggae band? And they perfectly point out the stupidity, the cliche, the trope of every step of the way of the music industry in this film. And I think it's really great to see. It's really great to see someone who's been through it, probably been abused by it because of the type of artist he is, just
Right.
kind of have the ability later on in his career to like just put it in that light and just unveil some of the truth. Even though there's a bunch of joking going on, I'm telling you, I know there's other musicians out there who got what I got from this.
No,
And they're like,
absolutely. And like
yes, thank
like
you,
I mean
Weird Al.
you take it like, and Weird Al's got such a like an interesting perspective as well, because again, the whole thing is, it's like, I assume just the biggest criticism that he probably has gotten throughout his entire career is that he's not technically doing original music, and but again, it's the whole thing. It's again, he's not technically writing original music, at least not, that's not what he became famous for. It's again, he is essentially co-opting previous previously established songs and just changing the lyrics in order to make something more humorous. But again, with you as somebody who has studied all this stuff, it's not technically, again, like all art is stealing in some way, shape, or form, but like it's not technically stealing. It's like what's the word that what's the word that the phrase that you use that I'm totally drawing a blank on, where it's like changing the art or something like that. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me.
Imitation is the sincerest form of
No,
flattery.
not that. When we were talking about like when we would be editing, what's it called? Like when we would be editing and I would be using footage, and
Oh,
then you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking
transforming
about.
it.
Transforming the footage. That's what it is. He's transforming the art is what it is. And it's not technically stealing, because while it is the same music per se, it is not necessarily the exact same art form. Like it is a different art form. Again, it's why satire and parody works, because you're taking the original and you're adding a new humorous perspective on it in order to transform it into something different. And again, I feel like that's always going to be a hard sell for people, especially the originators of the art. But again, it's like you look at Mel Brooks. When Mel Brooks parodied Alfred Hitchcock sent him a letter saying how much he loved the movie that he did. So like this stuff is not necessarily new. Like this stuff has been going on in art for a while now, and so
Can I point out two homages that he threw to um films and music
of course,
industry videos that had actually parodied the industry that they were within in the
yes,
past?
absolutely.
The first is a pretty obvious one when he takes a bite of the acid-laced guacamole. I mean, that's just so stupid. That's just so stupid. It's the guacamole is laced with acid. That's just like such an that's just such a roundabout way to do that. Like, if you're gonna do that, why do you put it in the "This guacamole tastes funny," and he's like, "Oh, well, yeah, of course, there's acid in it."
It's
And
acid
we
in it.
gotta talk about Rainn Wilson in
Yeah,
this
we
movie,
gotta. Oh my
but
god.
it's the acid trip was totally a nod to Tenacious D's Pick of Destiny
Yeah.
and all that craziness that ensues in that film, and then the father being so over the top, 1950s, "You're never gonna make it," goes back to Twisted Sister's We're Not Gonna Take It and I Wanna Rock music
Oh
videos,
my God,
where it's
yeah.
Dee Snider, who has the father in the 50s yelling at the young 70s teenager who just wants to rock, doesn't want to work in the factory. I love the factory thing. The fucking
The
factory
factory
is
bit
so
killed me. It
stupid.
was the most moronic thing. Can we just back to Ray Wilson for 5 seconds though? Can we talk about like probably the bit that had me laughing the hardest, which is at the end when he's like, "I realize now the role that I have. So now, and since I never had any children, can I adopt you as my son?" And then he's like, "Yeah, I kind of just made up with my dad." So, and he's like, "Oh,
Oh,
oh,
dude,
okay." I'm
so
like,
good.
"What the fuck is going on here?"
By the way, we have someone in the chat who hasn't fully finished the movie Derpy. We're sorry. I mean, we can't hold back
Yeah,
here.
we can. This is one of the. It's like sorry, like that. I mean, we usually don't really care that much about spoilers on here in general. Well, we try to be as courteous as possible, but yeah, sorry, we're gonna touch on everything here, man.
No, with a movie like this, we do try to be courteous, but with a movie like this, you just can't. But I
Yeah,
gotta say, man, the casting was absolutely such a
spot
star-studded
on.
cast. And you know what sucks? There's been some good star-studded cast on paper in comedy in recent years, but they haven't lived up to the expectations. And I
Agreed.
just think it's so telling that, of course, a movie like this, which I do think is unfortunately going to fall under the radar, has such a great star-studded cast. I hope this thing gets legs. I just don't know what will happen.
I'll tell you exactly what will happen is, and it kills me to say this. So obviously, a couple of years ago, there was a movie that came out that you and I would say, had differing opinions on at the beginning of the pandemic. You know, a movie called Bad Education with Hugh Jackman. I was a big fan of it, loved that movie. You were not a big fan of it. And what happened was that movie ended up getting nominated for the Emmy for Best TV Film. And the same thing happened for this past year for the Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie that went to Disney Plus. It was nominated for the Emmy for Best TV Film. So since this is on the Roku channel, it qualifies. So I would say that best case scenario, that's what happens for this movie if it picks up enough steam, is it will get nominated for, hopefully win the Emmy for Best TV Film. But again, it's like, I don't know. I just feel like such a slap in the face for movies like this, you
Just
know?
can't get any Oscar consideration,
No,
honestly.
no, not at all. It has to have gone to theaters, and they just completely skipped theaters for this one.
I gotta say though, Roku has a very strong official debut with this.
Yes, easily. Like I knew about this release date and like hard release date better than like half of the last couple of streaming release dates that have been like half the last couple of Netflix movies. Like Netflix dropped a gigantic, massively budgeted 2.5 hour long Paul Feig directed movie like a week ago, and I don't know a single person that's watched it or has talked about it. But that's Netflix. It's a whole different that's a whole different ball of wax right there, you know. But like the streamers are still definitely trying to figure out like how to like market their movies around like as events, you know, which is something that obviously again the theaters have a massive head start on them for. I feel like the only kind of semi-successful ones that happened this year were Hustle and The Gray Man, both on Netflix. Like HBO really hasn't had any. Apple really hasn't had a movie. You know what? I'll say it corrected. Apple had Cha Cha Real Smooth. That picked up some steam after a little bit. And Hulu had Fresh, but Fresh was already a pretty big hit at Sundance earlier this year. So the streamers are definitely having a little bit of a problem when it comes to like eventizing movies, and that's, you know, understandable just given, you know, just how they operate as far as distributing their stuff. But yeah, Roku did I thought a great job marketing this movie. And I think the big thing that helped is that they had Weird Al behind it as well. I think that was a big thing that helped them tremendously. But yeah, like, and every one of the trailers, they were like, yeah, hard watch on the Roku channel, November 4th. You know, they weren't as specific as they could have been as far as like, you know, just how easily accessible and available it was going to be too. And I think that's the thing that helped as well is, to a certain extent, this wasn't really a movie that you had to search for, which I think is also a big problem as well. So I think that what's it called? I think that's a I think that's a big reason as well why this is helping out as well. So I mean, as far as like, so you wanted to talk a little bit about Rainn Wilson. Like, can we just talk about somebody who has not at all had the career that we thought would have, you know, kind of like, I mean, obviously he's had a great career, you know, just because of The Office, but like, did he really ever have like another big moment outside of Dwight Schrute? Like, is there any other like iconic Rainn Wilson performance other than like having random pop-ups in animated movies or like supporting roles in comedies? Like, obviously he's got that he's got the iconic part as the oh my God, what's it called? As the convenience store clerk in the beginning of Juno, when she gets her first pregnancy test. And obviously, you know, he's got early on with James Gunn and Super, and what's it called, and obviously he has the voiceover as the villain in Monsters vs. Aliens. But like, I don't know, man. Like, was Rainn Wilson like kind of like what happens to unfortunately a lot of TV sitcom actors, which he kind of turned out to be a one-trick pony? Or because clearly, obviously Steve Carell and John Krasinski went on to have tremendous careers after that. But I don't know. Like, I always feel like there was like a gap there, because Rainn Wilson was like one of the biggest stars on TV for like 15 straight years.
Well, dude, you're forgetting two super important things. His office quiz with Billie Eilish, which was like the most viral thing for like a year.
That's true. That's true.
So come on now.
That's true.
Like,
but that was pandemic times. We didn't have much else going on for us during that.
okay.
So there's a little bit of a caveat to that.
He is the official voice of Audible original series.
Oh, okay. So he's working. He's making money. So
I'm being a little facetious there.
No, but still, he works.
He
He makes money though.
It's sad that but hey, this could be the start, of a comeback. But you're right. It really has been just the legs the Office has gotten, and those reruns got to be nice.
Yeah.
Those reruns got to be real nice. So I bet he's doing just fine. But it is unfortunate that, because I'm looking it up, man, and it's like, cool name, Rainn. Like, that's a wild name for someone just to have. But yeah, I don't know, man. Who cares though? Because he's so good in everything that he's in. Really, Super. He was in that. We can't forget.
The James Gunn movie. That's James Gunn's second movie.
Oh, okay. You said that. Copy that. And then The Rocker actually is pretty, but The
Rocker's good. But yeah, but again, all of those movies, they were all during the time of The Office. He always had The Office to piggyback on. And like even Ed Helms. Even Ed Helms did the Hangover movies. Did the first two Hangover movies, and then kind of took off and had a pretty good career. He led a couple movies.
Well, Ed Helms is like a megastar, I would say.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Craig Robinson, dude. Craig Robinson, I feel like, had a bigger career if we're talking about Office spinoffs than Rainn Wilson did,
Which is wild, right?
And you know what the crazy thing is, too? Jenna Fisher was married to James Gunn, like, during those early couple years of The Office,
Was she?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. But listen.
Weird how this praise of James Gunn goes throughout the Office community.
Who cares what he's done since? Because Rainn Wilson his comedic chops are still so on point in this. I mean, he is the perfect person to play directly across from Radcliffe, who is so good, dude.
Yeah.
He's so awesome. I love his creative choices, because basically here's what happened with Radcliffe, right?
Yeah.
Given the Holy Grail as like an 8-year-old.
Yep.
Set for life.
Yep.
And now it's just like, I want to make true art. And I'm kind of a weird dude. Like, I might be this little kid in the first 3 movies, but like, I'm kind of a weird dude in my adulthood. So I'm going to do some weird stuff, like a movie where there's guns pretty shittily taped to my hands. And like, that's funny. And I like that. And now I'm going to do this movie where it's Weird Al, who, by the way, the joke of him selling more records than the Beatles, and him like, writing Michael Jackson's Beat It before Michael Jackson writes it. And like, associated with Michael Jackson. Like, that was a crazy joke, dude. That was such a crazy joke. I couldn't believe it. Was so funny. And like, he's never like, I love that he just is like, he goes to this party and it's like, you brought me to a polka party? My parents are gonna kill me. It's like, dude, he's so perfect for this role. I don't know if anyone else could pull it off. Maybe like Michael Cera, maybe. But
but I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be the same. Yeah. Also, the fact that the narrator, the Weird Al that's narrating the movie, sounds absolutely nothing like him. I think it's just amazing,
hilarious.
Yeah.
And, did you know what they did? They come out with the Amish song, and it's 1985 where the movie ends. Hip hop wasn't invented until 91, and like. That's a song from 2005, and it's like, you don't care at that point.
You don't care because you're so invested in it. It's so good. Oh, man.
But I'm not just tired and rambling. I'm saying this to say, like, who could pull this off? Well, the creative team behind the movie, but the people they cast perfectly in every step of the way.
The Jack Black as Wolfman Jack bit. That was so perfect. That was just so beyond. Like all the random. all the random celebrity cameos that they would just
Yeah.
have, like Patton Oswalt in the one in the biker bar as the hacker, Lin-Manuel Miranda as the ER doctor at the
What?
beginning. Like that's immediate. Like as soon as I saw that, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And what is this movie? The Pablo Escobar bit in Cuba.
Dude, I love how you have Alice Cooper at this like weirdos party, just hanging out by a pool.
Yeah.
And I love how you have the bass player of Queen. And like that bit was so
And
fun.
nobody recognized who he was. It's like,
Because it's so true. I didn't even know the name. When they said it, that's the
exactly.
joke. That's
Yes.
the joke. It's hilarious.
It's so good. It's so. Can I just read off for you real quick?
Yeah.
Circling back around to Daniel Radcliffe. Can I just read off for you Daniel Radcliffe's filmography since in the last 10 years? It's been 10 years, 11 years actually since the last Harry Potter movie, Deathly Hallows Part 2. I just need to read you off his filmography because this is one of the most fascinating filmographies I've ever seen. So year after Deathly Hallows Part 2, he stars in a pretty shitty horror movie called Woman in Black. It's generic. I've read it. It's like a sinister ripoff. Then 1 year later, he stars in this movie, Kill Your Darlings with Dane DeHaan and Michael C. Hall from Dexter. That movie's okay. Then 2 years later, he's in Victor Frankenstein, where he plays Igor. It's kind of like essentially like a steampunk twist on Frankenstein. I actually watched that movie in theaters. It was like right after I graduated high school when I was just watching every movie. It was pretty good, honestly. McAvoy's in it. He's pretty good. The two of them actually make a pretty good pair. But that was the first instance where I noticed, I'm like, oh, so Radcliffe likes to get weird. Like, he's still Radcliffe, but like he likes to play weird. He likes to play like a disfigured hunchback. And then 2016, that's when the reels really come off because he's in Swiss Army Man, again, the infamous farting corpse movie, which ironically enough also put the Dans on the map, who currently right now are having one hell of a year right now with Everything Everywhere All at Once. And so Daniel Radcliffe is kind of a little bit low-key part of that. And the sequel, Now You See Me Too, which was kind of but he was the best part about it. Then he's got a couple of years where he's in some really, some weird stuff. In this movie, Imperium, where I believe he's trying to infiltrate a neo-Nazi gang. This movie, Horns, which is a supernatural thriller that picked up a little bit on Netflix. He's in this movie, Jungle, as well. But then things really get kicked off when Guns Akimbo comes out. And that's just when people are like, okay, so Daniel Radcliffe is really just literally doing whatever the fuck he wants. And as far as I'm concerned, keep doing it, because I've got specifically in the notes here, Daniel Radcliffe, low-key the actor of our generation, because again, it was one of those things where, like you said, got handed the holy grail of all holy grails, is in arguably one of the biggest decade-defining franchises. Like, of all the franchises that came out of the 2000s, there were a lot. The Dark Knight franchise, the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Star Wars prequels, oh my God, a bunch of other ones that are, Avatar comes out at the end of the decade. I know that's not technically a franchise at that point, but like arguably Harry Potter is as successful as all those other franchises, where Harry Potter is the franchise of that 2000s that everyone is trying to be before Marvel kind of comes in and takes the reins after them. And so, like you said, he's set for life. And the fact that he makes all of these choices that continues to show his range, that he is a good actor, and the fact that he is still willing to just go as ridiculous and goofy and off-kilter as possible. He also does this show that was running on TBS called Miracle Workers, where he's essentially a disgruntled angel working for God, who's played by Steve Buscemi as like a boozed out Frank Gallagher-esque God. And I've never watched a single episode of it, but the clips that I have seen on YouTube are hilarious. And so, yeah, he's got a really good sense of humor about him, and he understands, but he clearly likes being goofy, and he likes playing weird, which I'm a fan of. Like, I like that he wants to get out from, like, the kind of that leading man, straight man territory. And yeah, it's so satisfying, when it's like one of your idols can still be cool, because if you look at every other leading man from that decade, Elijah Wood, Hayden Christensen, Tobey Maguire from the Spider-Man movies. I mean, Tobey's low-key making a little bit of a comeback now too, but like all those guys, they found it pretty hard to work after that time period. I'm not saying it was their fault. It was just kind of a fact of, it's like Hollywood kind of pigeonholed them as these very specific leading men that were needed for the franchises that they were in, and then they kind of couldn't go anywhere after that, because just nobody wanted to take a chance on them, because that was during that time period where if you got pigeonholed, you were stuck, But I'm glad that Radcliffe was kind of able to beat that,
Well, okay, I'll give you all those points, but I will say Elijah Wood kind of did what Radcliffe is doing now way sooner. You ever heard of Wilfred?
You know what? You're right. You're right. I never watched Wilfred. I never watched Wilfred, but I was wondering like,
yeah, but that's a similar approach, because you're right. Those guys did get pigeonholed. It was hard for them to work. So what do you have to do when that happens?
Right.
You have to completely reinvent yourself. And did you notice who was a cameo in this movie?
Of those guys that I just listed?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. I'm looking it up now. I'm gonna get it.
Okay.
It probably was Elijah Wood.
It was. Yeah, it was him.
Oh. Oh, I must have
So
missed. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God. He's Phil Collins.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just so stupid and so
Yeah.
good. But listen, man, I think this movie is just what I needed. This is a great year for weird, quirky movies.
Yeah.
Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, that
Yes.
movie at the way beginning of the year
Yes.
with my guy, what's his name? Andrew Garfield, right? That's a
Um,
YouTube star, or is that last year? Am I
that's
just
last
like,
year. You put it in your top. I'm pretty sure you put it in your top 10 of last year.
oh, I did. You're right. Well, hey, it all comes within the same era. I guess is where my brain's coming from. But this year in specific is like a good year for quirky little
Yes.
oddball movies, and I
Yes.
love
For
that. I
sure.
think that's
For
what's kind of
sure.
getting me through it.
For
But
sure.
this
Yeah.
is the top of the list. This could potentially, just so you know, and
If
I'm
this
not
is your
gonna
number one, like I already can't wait. I already can't wait if this is your number one of the year.
like
That's
it's top
gonna kill me.
3 for now, but it could be like one of my favorite movies of all time.
Wow.
We'll see
No,
what
so
comes.
this is another one of those
Do,
ones.
do you remember when you showed me? You said, "Hey, watch this movie tonight," and I was alone and I was like bored and I was like, "I'll just put this on." It was Under Silver Lake,
Oh shit.
and then
Okay.
and then we watched it together, and I showed like 4 to 5 different people at different viewings. I like might do that with this movie, dude. Like I want to see
Oh, I hope
people
you do.
watch
I
this
hope you
movie
do.
for the
I love it
first
because
time.
the thing about you that people don't realize is that again, it's like it's low key. Like you've clearly come out and kind of stated that it's like again outside of like certain things, you're not a big fan of mainstream stuff, and that's fair because a lot of the mainstream stuff is crap. But it's one of those things where it's like you'll get that one movie that's like will just flies under everyone's radar, and you'll think it's the greatest of all time, and it just the way you react to it is always just so hilarious to me because it's always like, wait, really? It's like because I like the movie clearly, but I'm like I don't know if it's greatest of all time. Like I'm pretty sure you reacted that way to the first Fast and Furious movie, and that one was I'm like, okay, like pump the brakes here, you know. But yeah, I love whenever you get that reaction to stuff where you're
I
like, I
got
just
that
love it
reaction
so
because
much.
just the twist in the restaurant where it goes from, okay, this is clearly just Madonna does not just show up to his house and they do not just, and like, what does she say in the middle of them kissing in the hallway before they go into the bedroom? You're the greatest ever, or whatever. Like, that's
Yeah,
just so
it's
stupid.
so dumb,
And
and
Kevin
it's
Michael Wood is just phenomenal. And it's
yes,
just like, but then the action sequence hits. And I didn't know that. I thought this was going to be just a biopic. I didn't know this was going to be all this. I went
yeah.
into this completely cold. And then all of a sudden he just starts shooting people and he's like this assassin. He's the greatest musician of all time, the world's most deadly assassin.
Screw Assassin's Creed. He should be the star of that.
And it's like, yes.
Finally,
Yes.
you're
Thank you
like,
for making this, Roku. I'm
yes.
gonna go buy a freaking Roku now. I'll never use it. I'm just gonna go buy one. And that's what they wanted to hear. That's what they wanted to hear from me.
If there's no other takeaway from this podcast, just take away that Chris, and I have it in textual writing. I have documented evidence of Chris saying that he was not a Roku guy before this movie, and this movie is so good he's gonna go now invest in a Roku. Chris,
Yeah.
oh man, I can't think of it. I can't think of a better point on which to end this. But real quick, so Chris, before you brought up Evan Rachel Wood, and I got to bring up this. So as you know, Chris, Evan Rachel Wood has been the star of one of HBO's, I don't even know how to qualify this show, whether it's a success. Well, I guess it's not a success anymore, you know, but one of HBO's rather more watched shows of the last couple of years, that being Westworld, which say what you will about the rest of the show. I think you and I could both say that we were both a fan of the first season, no? At the very least.
Sure.
You know, I know you're not a biggest fan of it as me, but for my money, at least the first season of that show I thought was really,
The
really
first two
interesting.
episodes I loved.
And then it just kind of got worse and worse and worse as time went on to the point where we watched season 3 at the beginning of the pandemic. Like literally that show, I think it should have been telling that the third season of the show aired right when the start of the pandemic did. And I'm like that I think those 8 episodes were some of the worst 8 episodes, one of the worst 8 episode stretches that HBO has ever put out, which again, still better than most regular TV, but it was just not good in general. And so I think that to nobody's surprise. So Chris, did you know that the 4th season of Westworld aired this past summer?
Yeah, I did, but
Well,
you know,
it will please you to know that as of right now, Westworld has officially been canceled by HBO, despite the fact that they were renewed for a 5th season. But the cast will still be being paid for the 5th season, despite its cancellation. So this officially marks, again, we're getting into a little bit of movie news, but this officially marks that that there are now no more J.J. Abrams Bad Robot productions currently happening on HBO as part of their new initiative in order to kind of revamp and reinitialize after the massive amounts of money that they lost during COVID as part of David Zaslav's new projected head, along with James Gunn and Peter Safran now officially running DC Studios. They are officially looking to make more Harry Potter movies as well. They are doubling down on their franchises. They are doubling down on the success of House of the Dragon and focusing on that going forward. And I just thought that was like an interesting little connective bit because I see Evan Rachel Wood, and I've always loved Evan Rachel Wood. It's just she never was one of those actresses that kind of like really broke out and like got like big and massive, but she was always like consistent and solid. She was in that. I believe her first like really major breakout role was in that movie 13 that came out in the beginning of the 2000s. What's called? I believe she got a Golden Globe nomination for it. She was pretty close to getting an Oscar nomination for it as well. Had cameos in True Blood. She's always consistently worked. She's in The Wrestler, The Ides of March. She is a good actress, but it's like I always feel like she's that actress there. It's like I feel like you should be a lot more famous than you actually are. But like just seeing her in this movie as like the Madonna, which I don't know if he ever even dated Madonna at all. I don't know if that was like even a thing where like they didn't.
They did not date.
Okay, so maybe that was a parody of like her relationship with Guy Ritchie, because I know she had like a really, really tepid relationship with Guy Ritchie as well that kind of ended in flames. So maybe it was parodying that. I don't know. But like real quick, before we get out of here, did you stick around for the post-credit scene?
Yes, amazing.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because
I hope there's a sequel, or like I hope there's something. We need more, Dom. We need more from this universe.
I don't even know how to explain what. So like she has him assassinated at the fake Grammys where he gets the award for the fake award, but it's so ridiculous that it may as well be real. They assassinate him. They have the usual photo montage of like, oh, he was assassinated on this date, blah, 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 all the other facts that always end biopics. And then they have the credits, and then they cut to the post-credit scene where she goes to visit his grave, places a rose on his grave, and then his hand just reaches through and grabs the hand. I'm like, is this supposed to be like a riff on Thriller, or like what is going on here? It's just like one final bit of just like complete like weirdo hysteria craziness to top off this just perfect gem of an oddball of a movie, and in a strange way it does complete the theme of the movie, which is, again, don't be afraid to be a little weird, and that just goes towards the the overall theme of this movie, which is, again, we are just going to do bonkers and do whatever. This movie's going to be maybe seem like one thing, and then it's going to come off as something completely different, and you guys are going to love it and watch it regardless, because it's a fun time. Like, movies don't have to adhere to all of these structures and formulas. They can just be a fun time, and I feel like that is ultimately what has been the goal of our podcast, and what has been kind of what's missing, and what we've been begging of Hollywood for these last couple of years, is stop trying to make everything seem so important and heavy and weighty. Just step back and have fun every once in a while. Is that too much to ask? Enough with the political jargon, and we'll see, obviously, with the coming bit of projects. It seems like a lot of the studios are hopefully going to stay away from that, with the exception of Disney, because unfortunately Disney is kind of the foreheader of that entire, of all kind of the garbage content that we're getting right now. But hopefully, and I'm not saying that this movie is going to contribute to that in any way, shape, or form, but hopefully this signals that things are finally going to be taking a shift. Like I said, I'm still very, very much looking forward to the batch of stuff that we're going to be getting in 2023. We still have a few big ones that are coming out for the rest of the year. We still have the two major gigantic movie events to end the year, that of course being Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and Avatar: The Way of Water. So we'll see how those two are now. We've also got a Knives Out movie coming out on Netflix. That, Chris, remind me again, you always love to throw that number out there for people. How much did Netflix drop on that franchise for two more sequels?
400 million.
400 million for two movies. Like, what? Yeah. Like, no wonder Rian Johnson was like, oh, see ya, Disney, and they're gonna let me do whatever I want. See ya, Disney. No,
it was a good investment.
It was a very good investment. Hey, if it's better than the first one, like, I won't be complaining. It's just, I'm consistently sick of Rian Johnson thinking that he's smarter than everybody else. But hey, if he just wants to make Agatha Christie-esque murder mysteries with a different cast of famous people every time, I don't care. Let him do his thing. So, with that being said, Chris, your final thoughts and your star ratings on Weird, the Weird Al movie, the Al Yankovic Story. We have to preface with that.
This movie might not be for everyone, but it was for me. I needed it. It is just one of those movies that I'm going to be spending a lot more time with. It's a 5 out of 5. It is everything I love in a movie. Most importantly, it's really cool artistic expression, which is, like you just said, what we need more of. And I gotta say, really commend them. I only got 2 Roku advertisements. Out of the 8 ad breaks, there was only 2 Roku advertisements.
I still don't know how I didn't get any ads on mine. I have no idea.
Well, hey, it is what it is. Maybe because you're a Roku household. I don't know.
Possibly, but I didn't even have to sign into my account. I didn't have to sign into anything. I literally just went on the site and watched it. I have no idea how.
Fair enough. Well, Dom, what's your ranking and final thoughts on this
Yeah,
film?
this was the movie that going in, I had absolutely no thoughts or expectations about, and coming out of it, I'm like, it was just such a blast. It was just so much fun. Again, it's not one of my favorites of the year, like one of my like top tier movies, because again, like just with how crappy and just how few movies this year. Chris, I'm only up to 45 movies so far, and the year only has 2 months left in it. That is insanely low for me, just in general. That part of that has a lot to do with just the fact of everything that's going on in my life. But yeah, just the movies that have been coming out this year. I don't know if it's just a result of me getting older and just me being like really, really picky and selective about the movies that I watch, as I get into my old age of having just been watching everything for these last couple of years, and just how much has become so disappointing. But like, yeah, I'm like, this is the fact that this movie, a Roku original, is one of the best of the year is baffling to me, but I'll take it where I can get it. So yeah, this is a 4 out of 5 for me. For sure. It just missed on the half star by that much. But yeah, this movie was a ton of fun. I had a blast with it. I recommend to watch it to everyone. And hey, it is available in the most easiest way possible. And you don't even have to go to Netflix to watch it. So nobody has any excuse to not watch it. So with all that being said, thanks again, guys, for tuning in to another episode. Like I said, this is a little bit of an off week, a little bit of an off kilter week. We'll be back. We'll be back next week. I almost made a very unintentional, really would have been very, very strange sounding pun there. Next week, for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. We're going to see how Disney, hopefully, carries on Chadwick's legacy in the wake of this. And then finally, we'll be done with Marvel content for the year. Although the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special is coming out on Netflix, and that actually does look hilarious because it's basically in an attempt to cheer Quill up. Mantis and Drax are going to attempt to kidnap Kevin Bacon, and that just looks amazing, to say the least. So we may get... Yeah, so so Marvel might not be out yet. Like I said, I'm hoping the 2022 is the end of the crap for them, and I'm hoping the 2023 we can get at least a little bit of good stuff, with the third Ant-Man movie and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and Secret Invasion looks pretty good. But as for this, and for Weird, and for myself, and Chris, this has been fun. Chris, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
Yeah, you guys can find me at Christian Evanko. I make music. I obviously am here right now on the Talking TV podcast. So Evanko, that's my last name. Really hope to see you guys on all the places I travel across the internet. And I would hope that you guys then travel across to the other side of the screen and follow and support my co-host, Tom. Where can they find you?
At Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms. Be sure to follow the official Talking TV podcast across all platforms as well. I just recently put up the top 10 spooky horror movies. I know that Halloween officially ends once November comes on, but I still always am trying to push that. And I'm working on some new stuff for you guys as always, even as my semester gets busier and busier. So be sure to follow me across all platforms. With that, be sure to subscribe to us if you're watching us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch. And as always, people, watch more fucking movies. I didn't have time for the 12 seasons of short film. I'm sorry. I'm just as tired as you are. We'll see you guys next time.